everybody? Welcome back to the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. Lots to catch up on over the past week in the world of pro wrestling and sports entertainment. I'll be catching up you guys with my thoughts after my 37-day Raw challenge that ended the other week. I'll also be talking about some of the new developments going on in AEW following the Grand Slam show and some other tidbits leading in to other videos I have on the channel. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that I also have the Rantin Review gaming channel. For those of you who are gamers or like to watch Let's Plays or walkthroughs, I'm currently doing a blind playthrough of the 2019 Control game, which has a lot of weird stuff. But that's available on the gaming channel, so be sure to click the button for the gaming channel and subscribe over there if you haven't already. But now let's talk about what's going on in pro wrestling over the last week or so. So my 30-day Raw challenge, you guys may remember that. I started it a while ago, and I got through the 30-day Raw challenge, and it was actually turned into be 37-day Raw challenge. And the goal was to see whether or not WWE, for me, as a lapsed WWE fan who had stopped watching Raw and SmackDown on a regular basis a long time ago, was it enough to get me back into watching Raw and SmackDown every single week? Well, the results of that, as far as that's concerned, no. I think, in particular with Monday Night Raw, the 3-hour format, I felt like I had lost a lot of time in my week from other things that I would rather be doing or want to do by watching 3 hours of Raw every single Monday. And, you know, it's not an indictment against WWE's product, because I will say this, is that the show is a lot better than it has been in recent years. And from the clips I've watched, far less silly crap. I don't even think I've seen the 24/7 championship since I started the Raw 30-day challenge. You know, a lot of the goofy, silly stuff that just made me cringe for years and years and years, and eventually got me to stop watching Monday Night Raw every single Monday, which I had watched almost every single Monday between 1993 all the way up until around 2015, I think it was. I can't remember exactly when I stopped watching it. But it was also kind of weird to try to go back and spending a month actually going back to that routine. And I was kind of wondering, would I go back and fall back into that habit again? Because it was a habit. It was a force of habit just to watch Raw every single Monday, as I had been doing it for decades before that. And not so much. I do remember it was a lot harder when I stopped watching Monday Night Raw years ago. That first week or two, it felt weird not watching Raw on Mondays, and now it kind of feels weird to spend 3 hours watching Monday Night Raw on Monday nights instead of doing the other things that I've now started doing, and I do with my evening. But let's again not forget the positive that I said. WWE has gotten better. It's not tremendously better. We're not back to the Attitude Era. Triple H has made the booking a lot more sensible. They are starting to do new interesting things that I think they should have been doing for a while. This White Rabbit thing is really taking off with a lot of the hardcore fans, so they're doing that for them. And then on the same time, they're doing stuff for the casual fans and the mainstream people who might want to look into it, with this whole Logan Paul thing with Roman Reigns, which I'll talk about in the next segment. But overall, the results of my 30-day Raw challenge, 30-day plus Raw challenge, is no, I will not be watching Monday Night Raw every single Monday from here on out and going back to my old schedule, but I will probably be more likely to check it out more often than not. I'm going to try to see if SmackDown's a little bit better since it's a 2-hour show. I may do a SmackDown challenge sometime in November to see if I can return to that show. And I've heard that SmackDown, depending on the month, is usually better than Monday Night Raw anyway, so we'll see about that. Now back to the Logan Paul Roman Reigns thing. A lot of people have complained about it. I've seen online, a lot of people love it. I've seen various different thoughts on the whole thing. And here's one thing you have to remember. Triple H said it at the beginning of that press conference. The WWE is about spectacle.
WWE is all about spectacle. It's about being larger than life, putting on events all around the globe like no one else.
It feels like, and I know that I don't think he does. I wouldn't think Triple H will watch, my channel or anything like anything. Why would you bother if you're Triple H? But it sounds like something that I've been saying for a while now, is that when I look at WWE, I don't watch WWE to see a pro wrestling show. I watch WWE to see the spectacle and the moments. And Triple H pretty much confirmed that. And this thing with Logan Paul is a spectacle. And it's also a brilliant marketing move, which WWE far excels every other wrestling company as far as marketing is concerned, because a lot of people who pay attention to these stats know that the WWE's audience has been aging. In fact, at one point in time, and I think it's still probably true to this day, I haven't looked it up recently, but you know, the average age of a Raw viewer was around 45 to 50 years old. And that's an aging audience. AEW did get somewhat more of the younger audience, and what WWE is trying to do with Logan Paul is obviously tap in to the younger audience that hasn't been tuning into their show. Logan Paul has tens and tens of millions of followers. He is one of the biggest influencers in the millennial and the Gen Z demographic. Again, I know for wrestling people who, you know, all they really know is sports entertainment or WWE or wrestling, and they don't really know too much about what's going on outside of that, but Logan Paul is a huge name. He's a huge star. WWE sweaties might boo him, but to the rest of the world, Logan Paul in some respects gets more viewership than WWE does on his own. So him coming in to the infrastructure of WWE, which is far bigger than his, but him coming into that infrastructure picks up more people who might be interested in him, so he hopes. But for WWE, it's even more advantageous, let's say. If they can get a fraction of Logan Paul's tens and tens of millions of probably over 100 million young followers to watch WWE and to be into WWE or discover or rediscover WWE because of this Logan Paul Roman Reigns match, that's a big win for them. Again, they have been kind of lacking for the last 10, 15, 20 years in that 35 and under demographic. So bringing some more young eyeballs to it is a great thing. And it's the same thing that they did. This is what Vince did back in the rock and wrestling era, where, you know, people were like, well, why is WWF on wrestling on MTV? Well, it ushered in a lot of the young people who were watching MTV at the time, caught on to wrestling, and they became fans of wrestling for a number of years. So it's an old strategy. It's been tried and true. That was like almost 40 years ago. So it's the same strategy, just in a different market, in a different platform. And I think business-wise, it's a brilliant idea. Now, as far as the wrestling community is concerned, this is up there with David Arquette and Lawrence Taylor and stuff like that, where Logan Paul is more skilled than those guys were in the ring, and he takes wrestling a little bit more seriously than those guys did. But I think Logan Paul probably will surprise people with the performance he has against Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns, who is clearly in everybody's top 3 at least for Wrestler of the Year this year. He just won PWI's top 500 Wrestler of the Year. So he's in God level now for legitimately, for sure. So I think that match will be interesting. I'll try to see if I can catch it. I don't watch the Saudi Arabia shows, but if I can get the highlights from their YouTube channel, maybe I'll check that out. Over in AEW, there's a lot of rumors going around, and they are rumors. So Buddy Murphy just announced that at an independent show that he was going to take some time away, which now reduces the House of Black in AEW to Julia Hart and Brody King. It may be time just to repackage Brody King and put him on his own thing, and which I thought they probably should have gotten rid of the House of Black name anyway. And it might be the best thing for Brody King to be a single star, along with Julia Hart being his second. I mean, it gives her a lot more place to stand out and shine. A lot of people are very, there's speculation and rumors that Buddy Matthews Murphy is going to go back to WWE. Malakai Black's going back to WWE, when in fact, again, these are rumors. Only thing that's been said from either one of them is that they're taking time off. Malakai Black is going to either sit out his contract or try to get bought out of his contract, but he's apparently dealing with personal issues and it has nothing to do with WWE. And we don't know what's going on with Buddy Matthews, Buddy Murphy, but there's this gleefulness and giddiness, which again, I've talked about before in the wrestling community, which I try to avoid. It's hard to talk about pro wrestling and have a YouTube channel and to avoid the silly nonsense that goes on in a lot of the wrestling online community, but people just really taking logical leaps with this stuff. Again, as I said in a video I did the other week, until I hear official word from WWE, AEW, a legitimate news source like a Sports Illustrated or someplace, or the Washington Post or something like that, a place that does somewhat of real reporting, and I say somewhat in those cases, or if I hear from the wrestlers themselves, all of this stuff, it goes in one ear and out the other ear. It's like, okay, that's something people are saying. I haven't seen anything from anybody officially saying that either one of these guys are trying to go back to WWE, but I have seen people say there are rumors and words around. And again, that can be started by a handful of people who are just putting stuff out there, and then it gets spread around. So now that doesn't mean that Buddy Matthews and Malakai Black don't want to go to WWE, but as far as right now, to report that as being true, or to even kind of go with it as a rumor when I haven't heard the rumor from other people besides people who came up with the rumor, I'm not going to put too much stock into it. But it is something to see what they're going to do. More importantly, as far as the TV show is concerned, what Brody King and Julia Hart are going to be doing going forward in AEW. Now, AEW just came off one of its biggest weeks. It sold over $1 million gate for the Grand Slam show. In fact, the guy that put them over that mark, ironically enough, looks like Kenny Omega. It's a good thing for AEW, even though the crowd wasn't as big as last year's. They made more money than last year's, and that, when it comes down to the business side of it, if they're making more money, it's a success for them. Plus, the ratings were pretty good, and they've been over 1 million for a couple weeks now. Now, a lot of that might have to do with all the controversy around CM Punk and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega from the All Out Fallout, but they've been managing to keep that audience, pretty consistent, over 1 million viewers for about a month now. And even WWE, which has been suffering on Monday Night Raw because of Monday Night Football, they weren't able to sustain their bump in the ratings after Triple H took over. So we'll see how far this goes with AEW, if the ratings are going to dip back down. It was a lower rating, though, than the week prior to it. So that might be a little bit concerning, but I'm not so sure because they had a lot of competition on Wednesday nights. But one of the cool things that came out of the Grand Slam show, along with Chris Jericho winning the Ring of Honor Championship, which, by the way, brilliant storytelling there with Daniel Garcia. Now they're really taking that thing to another level with the Jericho Appreciation Society. Jon Moxley becoming the 3rd or 4th or 3.5 time AEW World Champion. And obviously the Acclaimed, even despite a few botches and the match not being as good as the one at All Out, they did have a win and won the World Tag Team Champions from Swerve and Our Glory at the show. But one thing I do really, really want to think about and talk about, speaking of the House of Black, was the fact that the Great Muta made a run in. And the Great Muta, for those of you who are not familiar, he is not with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He is with Pro Wrestling Noah. And it has now been announced that Sting will be part of the big celebration because Muta is retiring this year. And I love the way the Japanese do wrestling retirements. They always make it like this big event. So Muta's last match will be a big deal. Sting will be in attendance at that show in some role or capacity. And him showing up on Dynamite, again, this is one of the cool things about AEW, is that they do work with other companies. And they do other things like that. So, the scuttlebutt is about whether or not WWE is taking over. And WWE definitely has the momentum now, and they definitely are putting out a better show. Triple H did say some things that made me think, they're probably still not going to be able to take over where AEW is taking over as far as the partnerships are concerned, because Triple H just brought in Gabe Sapolsky, who's going to be kind of doing indie work to pull people from the indies into WWE, and presumably not so much reaching out and doing partnerships with other wrestling promotions. And that's a different philosophy. Whereas Tony Khan's one is, we'll bring in people from other wrestling promotions to give those other wrestling promotions exposure to our fan base in North America who might not know about them. Whereas it's more with WWE's history. Now, they could change this because Triple H is doing new stuff, but their history has been, no, let's grab the people from the indies and bring them into WWE and WWE-ify them, as opposed to bringing in a different flavor and a different style and a different face and melding that into what WWE does, or even clashing against what WWE does. So those are two different philosophies on how to deal with outside wrestling companies. The other thing Triple H did say too is that he thought doing blood was irresponsible. So that's another, Tony Khan might feel relieved about that, and because that's another distinction between the two companies. If you're going to see big, crazy, brutal matches, you're not going to see them in WWE anymore. Triple H even acknowledged that their history was doing that. He certainly dropped quite a lot of blood on WWE mats in his day. But where WWE is now, again, they are a publicly traded, very Disney family-friendly kind of thing. So having blood and guts matches is not going to be up their avenue. They are going to be having War Games this year, Survivor Series, which I think is a weird combination of, those are two staples from, I remember 1987 was the year that the Survivor Series debuted, and 87 was also the year that the War Games debuted in Jim Crockett Promotions, and you're kind of mashing them together. So my old school wrestling fan, who was that was my first or second year in wrestling, my kid wrestling fan gets excited about that. But there's not going to be any blood and guts in that War Games match. But then again, Triple H, never say never. But I want to know what you guys think. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below, even if you're Teddy Long. I'm sure he's blocked me too, but it turns out it wasn't Teddy Long blocking people. It was somebody who hacked his account. But yes, if you tell me what you think about the Teddy Long situation too, and any of these other situations, Sting and Muta, what's going on with this White Rabbit thing? Who do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be Bray Wyatt? Do you think the Triple H is going to hold to the no blood policy? And do you think that AEW's got a problem with retaining some of these former NXT stars that they all sucked up, and now some of them might be going back to WWE? Or are these just wishful thinking rumors from people out in the wrestling online community? Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until next time, I will see you guys here for more news, rumors, and commentary on the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.